Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the #1 professional wrestling radio show in Las Vegas. This is the Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. 1 full hour of wrestling news, entertainment, and lots of Sin City surprises from inside the squared circle. Now, let's bring on the host. Here is Mark Hoke.
All right, everybody. Hey, we got another special edition of the Mark Hoke Show. Thanks for being with us. We do appreciate it as we are here on KDWN 101.5 FM, 720 AM. It's the show so nice we get to be on the radio twice. How about it? The best in pro wrestling news and entertainment and a whole lot more. And I did manage at the last minute to get one of my ride mates along. I am very excited to have with me on Saturday night here, the amazing, the incredible, and he's an okay-looking guy, Joe DeFalco from Future Stars of Wrestling here in Las Vegas. Joe, how are you tonight? Oh, sorry.
In the mail, I said, how could I say no to that?
There you go. All right. Well, Joe, how's your weekend going so far?
So far so mediocre. Not a good week on the gambling front.
Too much on the hockey or the basketball? Where are you getting killed?
Oh, in the casino.
Oh, the casino.
Yeah, that video poker not doing well.
Joe, come on. You should know better than that.
Well, I've done well in the, up until pretty recently.
Well, they know how to find you, Joe. You know that.
Yeah. They know where I live.
Yeah, well, they know how that card works. Win.
Did you see Evander Holyfield's kid got knocked out in the first round? He was minus 10,000.
No, I didn't see that.
I just saw it on the Trillers fight. He was 9-0. He got beat up by an electrician, knocked out cold.
Wow, not good. Well, that'll set that career back for a little bit, but oh well.
I just want to know, was there anybody who bet $10,000 to win $100?
Oh, could you imagine? Who'd be that stupid? Well, we're in Las Vegas, so.
Yeah. I remember people betting on on Tyson against Buster Douglas
at
that time. So.
Yeah, that does happen. Well,
hey,
yeah. So, by the way, Joe, how are the things at Future Stars of Wrestling going? I know I've been seeing. If you're not following them on Facebook, by the way, if you want to get your Facebook feed blown up in a good way, follow Future Stars of Wrestling. Holy cow, a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. We're just 2 weeks away. The Full Tilt weekend. Some people call it AEW weekend. Some people call it Memorial Day weekend. But I'm going to put my show up with any card that's going to happen that weekend. So,
yeah, it's going to be an amazing weekend here in Las Vegas. If you don't know, of course, AEW, All Elite Wrestling, has 3 events going on here in Las Vegas. On Wednesday and Friday night, they have their Dynamite and Rampage tapings, and then Sunday is the Double or Nothing pay-per-view with the main event, Adam Page, the Hangman, defending the AEW World Championship against CM Punk at T-Mobile, and it is sold out. It is going to be one hell of a night in there. And I got media credentials for the TV shows. I do have tickets for the pay-per-views, so I'll get to give everybody a lot of live, up-close and personal information about what's going on at AEW for that week. And I know, Joe, you've got a lot of events planned, too. It's going to be sensational.
Yeah, now all of a sudden I'm starting to get hit up from all avenues, from AEW side, Buddy Matthews, QT Marshall. We had talked with Jay Lethal, people trying to, make as much cash as possible that weekend, where I'm getting hit up who wants, hey, interested in us doing a seminar? And it's like, well, I got Jay Lethal and Davey Richards, 1-2, whichever one, who's able to do it. So, so QT Marshall might have to miss out on doing a seminar. So, but, he's a good seminar to do because, he's the right-hand man of Tony Khan. So, maybe if you get in good with that guy, you can send in some stuff and you can get a look-see.
There you go. Well, Joey, as a promoter here in Las Vegas, what is it like building something around an event when a big pay-per-view comes to town? Of course, Las Vegas is now really starting to heat up in terms of events for AEW and WWE. Of course, AEW has had Double or Nothing here. I think this will be the third one, and WWE is just had SummerSlam here. We've got Money in the Bank coming up, and it sure seems like WWE is going to be making Allegiant Stadium a permanent stop on the tour. Of course, we had Money in the Bank here a while back, but Allegiant seems to be a pretty popular place all of a sudden. So what is that like from your perspective? What are you dealing with, aside from getting a couple phone calls here and there? What do you end up doing, and what happens?
Well, we didn't really start until WWE did SummerSlam out here last year. You know what I mean? It's like generally, if you're going to run multiple events, you want to kind of do it around WrestleMania. But, so far, WWE hasn't come to Allegiant Stadium for WrestleMania. So, we've not really been in that position. And as the years have progressed and we got ourselves, with good people, working together, whether it was Impact or Ring of Honor and then GCW and Sami Callihan, who's worked with us in the past, now all of a sudden it's like, hey, something's going on. So, I make a call because I already know GCW's coming to town. They hit me up and Brett, the owner's like, hey, we're going to be doing something, obviously AEW weekend. Well, we had planned on doing a joint show with Sami Callihan 2 years ago. Zachary Wentz, who Nash Carter, he was getting married to Kimberly in May of 2020. And we were building a Mecca show around that with Revolver because the Rich Swans, Ace Austin, Sami Callihan, that whole crew from the Midwest that works with Sammy, they were coming to town, and we had plans. And 3 months before the show, like in March, right before the pandemic, we were already sold out of front row for a show that wasn't going to be on for at least almost 3 months. And we saw that AEW had a different type of fan base. When we ran the Meccas, we did them based off Ring of Honor. So when GCW came to town, we had worked with them in the past, and I thought, finally maybe we should do a show together. And we did on the Sunday afternoon, surprisingly enough. SummerSlam started at 5, the pre-show was at 4, and we did a 12 noon show. And basically the FSW arena was sold out. It wasn't 1,000 people, but it only, it fits right around 300. But for a 12 noon show, it really showed that the fans were willing to come out. And we've learned that from WrestleMania when they do 100 shows.
Right.
So now AEW is back, and since they're around Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, we figured, hey, look, why don't we do something Thursday, Friday, Saturday? And, GCW talked to some of their friends who happens to be Black Label Pro, and they run, a solid show. And I worked with Callahan. So we have 4 companies, as well as a guy we know who's running a women's show. So there's literally 7 events that we're running ourselves.
Wow. That is amazing. By the way, Joe, tell everybody a little bit about GCW if they don't know what that is. Because we may have some casual fans that are listening that might know about WWE and AEW, but not some of the other promotions.
Well, GCW was a company that really took off right during the pandemic. They were getting some good publicity. They were getting to be pretty well known.
And it's Game Changer Wrestling, just so if you
right, and they were similar to they were kind of like the ECW version of Ring of Honor, Nick Gage, King of the Death Match, and they put together some shows. But when the pandemic hit, Ring of Honor shut down, and GCW ran wherever they could, whenever they could, outdoor shows, indoor shows, and they really got themselves out there to the point where when the pandemic was toward the end and we were all able to start doing shows, Ring of Honor kind of stopped, and GCW kind of took over as that live event company, and they were doing, the numbers Ring of Honor used to do in the past. And to be honest with you, I think part of the reason they folded was because they lost all the momentum Ring of Honor to GCW.
I agree.
And then Nick Gage got to be on AEW, so they got more of a fan base. They had Jericho, and then with Ring of Honor folding recently, they brought in like a Matt Cardona, who they ran a great angle with that got over huge. And, he ended up winning their championship for a little while. And, they made a lot of right moves, and they used guys like Ricky Morton and the Rock and Roll Express, and they used Too Cold Scorpio. And they kind of mix in like these crazy classic guys, but then they also brought in to do Bloodsport as well as the Joey Janela stuff on WrestleMania, the midnight shows, and they've really branded themselves. And to me, they're the number 3 company in the United States because Impact's more of a television company.
Yeah, I would agree. It's been very interesting, and of course, seeing the rise of Matt Cardona, who, if you don't know, used to be Zack Ryder. Woo woo woo, you know it. Has just totally reinvented himself, and he is the NWA World Champion, and the dude's got more independent scene titles than he can carry in his suitcase right now. It's unreal.
The funny thing is, after WWE, Impact was kind of the first thing, and he's still a part of Impact, but he has nowhere near gotten the popularity from Impact that he got as becoming the GCW heavyweight champion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was amazing. So if you haven't been following what's been going on with him, I would suggest you give it a follow, because Matt Cardona, he ain't Zack Ryder anymore, that's for sure. That is for sure.
And Jon Moxley's their champion.
Yep. So, yeah, it's an interesting company, and one definitely to watch as the future goes on here in professional wrestling, which, I think has been incredibly strong lately. So we'll see where that goes. There were some interesting stories this week, Joe, and of course, we had a lot that happened in the ring, but I kind of want to, since I have some time with you, I want to go back behind the scenes a little bit and talk about a few of these things that occurred this week behind the curtain. And one that I wanted to hit was, we all remember Sonny, who, of course, the manager who was in the Hall of Fame, and just was in a massive fatal car crash. She has had unbelievable trouble with the law. She actually was given bail, but that bond was revoked. She is now in jail and doubtful.
I wasn't aware of that. I remember I saw somebody posted bail. I didn't know she was back in.
Yeah, they just picked her up yesterday. So she is back in jail. And, it's a very sad story to see that. But the bigger picture on this is, we see shows like Dark Side of the Ring where, we just the horrible things that happen with some wrestlers and the difficulty of the lifestyle. And I'm curious, you were in an academy there. How much of that do you talk about? How much of that gets talked about behind the scenes to say, you've got to watch yourself. You got to be careful. You can't, if you feel yourself slipping, here's some resources to pull yourself back. And how predominant is it now, as opposed to, the territory is everybody was doing crazy stuff. But now what is it like? Are there places for everybody to go, or, has that settled down? What's going on back there?
Well, it's much more difficult because, we run a show 2 times a month, and sometimes a guy that we use may not be even used that month. He might get used, 6 times a year for us. So we're really not in the position to know what's going on. Obviously, more so with the local talent because they're around and things like that. We had an issue a few shows ago that, a guy came to town, one of our main out-of-town guys, and, a couple people said they believed he was drunk, and it was before the show. But the thing is, it's like, how many people smoke weed now because it's legal before the show, during the show, after the show? Monitoring people, as everybody has learned in this world, that people are good at hiding what they don't want other people to see. So unless it's, extremely obvious, you don't really know. And, God forbid you accuse somebody of something, because then if you do that, that opens up another can of worms. So it's a lot easier for the WWE, AEW, but I would think it's extremely hard for even like an Impact. They come in, they do a taping. They come in for 2 or 3 days. I'm pretty sure everybody, as they did in Vegas, after the show, they go to the bar, they go eat, they go drink, they go party, they go to bars, they go hang out. And, you are going to get that Jeff Hardy situation, here and there. And all you can try to do is, these are grown men. You can only ask them to do something. And it's like, if it's a guy high up on the card, you're probably going to give him the benefit of the doubt, let's say. And you don't want to stir the boat because you're only seeing him for today and tomorrow, and you won't see him again for another 5 weeks.
Do you think that alcohol and drug use is prevalent as it used to be in professional wrestling, or have people backed off, especially the hard stuff? We know so many stories about, especially cocaine use. I mean, the stories about guys like Roddy Piper and so on using cocaine are legendary at this point, obviously in a bad way. But do you think that there's more of it, less of it? What's going on?
I think there is definitely less of it, but I do know over the last, 10 years, it's really switched to pain pills. And, I've dealt with guys like after a show, I'm doing commentary, I'm running around. I don't have a lot of time to pay attention to everything. And I remember one of the guys, and I still use him to this day. And he came in after the show, and he started talking because he liked working for FSW. This was in the early days of the Silver Nugget, so this was probably like 2010. And he started talking to me, and then all of a sudden I had to take a step back, and all of a sudden he was kind of lulling when he was talking, and I was like, this guy's got to be pilled up, And, fortunately after, a while later, he ended up, taking care of it and went for treatment. And I've seen that with some of the guys that we've used. But again, it's not really going to be advertised because they're independent wrestlers. If you take 2 months off, nobody knows why. If somebody in WWE takes off for 2 months, there's a million people trying to find out, well, what happened? What's he doing? What did he do wrong?
Yeah, then, of course, this is the Mark Hoke Show, special Saturday night edition. I'm Mark Hoke, the best in pro wrestling news and entertainment here in Las Vegas, along with my good buddy Joe DeFalco from Future Stars of Wrestling. And make sure you go to fswvegas.com and check out everything Joe's got going on there. And, and leading into that, if you watched AEW on Wednesday night, you saw a match with Darby Allin and Jeff Hardy, where they did this insane spot where Darby Allin jumped off, that looked like at least a 12-foot ladder that was set up inside a ring, and he jumped off, did a flip onto Jeff Hardy, who was sitting on 8 chairs that were laid out facing each other, almost coffin-esque, and Allin lands on top. Hardy tried to catch him, didn't look like he caught him very much, but and Hardy took some pretty hard bumps in there too. And you see the escalation of what guys are having to do in the ring. You look at GCW, you look at a guy like Nick Gage, who just tears himself apart every night. And of course, he's admitted he's had a lot of issues with drugs and alcohol and so on. And you just wonder when you see that, it's cool and you're like, oh wow, that was cool. But then you got to think about afterward. How do you recover from doing that all the time? And I was thinking about Jeff Hardy, who's a guy that's dealt with addiction and things like that. And I'm thinking, God, he's got to be in so much pain all the time doing that kind of crazy stuff. You worry about people like that their bodies can't take it. And, where do you turn to recover? And, how hard is it to not just grab a bottle of pills and start shoving it down your throat,
Well, and what you got to understand is it's like, the guy who's on my show, he is looking to make a lot of money and become a WWE, AEW, New Japan superstar. And they're going to do whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking on my podcast about, wrestling, and sometimes you hear people like, oh, man, make sure you take it easy tonight. There's only 30, 40 people here. Well, a lot of people aren't taking it easy because they're not worried about the 30, 40 people that are in the stands. They're worried about the YouTube videos. They're worried about sending footage to somebody. If I have a match against a Davey Richards and it happens to be in front of 50 people, am I going to take it easy because there's only 50 people there?
No way.
Or am I going to kill it because I want people to see that I hung with one of the best wrestlers in the world?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it is with all these guys. They're trying to get to that next level. So they're not concerned with if they're going to get hurt today or hurt tomorrow. They're worried about hopefully somebody sees this, it goes viral, and maybe it gets me a job somewhere.
Yeah, and it just seems like it's a catch-22 because you don't want to cause your body too much pain, but at the same time, you want to up your career too. And finding that line, I would think, is very, very difficult. And you're trying to get to that promised land of say, a WWE or an AEW. But then even there, I mean, especially AEW, which seems to me a little more physical style of wrestling, man, it's just got to be hard to say, man, I got to do something to take that next step, get past this guy in the locker room. And you're willing to do whatever it takes, and sometimes that toll is too much of a price to pay.
No different than in the past when guys took steroids because they wanted to look the part, and other guys were looking the part, and they felt that to hang with those guys, those were things that they needed to do. So, and then as a promoter, you look at it as, okay, hey, there's this hot commodity. This guy's really blowing up the scene in SoCal. I'm going to bring him up, man. He does some crazy stuff. And then all of a sudden I bring him in and he doesn't barely do anything. Well, why would I bring him in again? I was expecting this guy to do certain things. So, it's that catch-22. Am I at fault because I'm expecting him to do it? Is he at fault because that's what he normally does? You know what I mean? It's like there's so many people that are trying to get spots. And, I guess thankfully, but unthankfully sometimes, there's so many companies that are running. There's so many independent companies. 7 years ago, we were pretty much the only local promotion. Now there's 5, 6, 7, every weekend there's something going on. Some draw and most don't. But you know what? Our guys work them. Everybody works them because they're trying to get the experience, and everybody's vying for a spot.
Yeah, it is a fascinating business, that's for sure. And by the way, if you want to get into that business, great place to go is Future Stars of Wrestling. Not only does Joe promote cards, but he also got a great academy down there, and would highly recommend go to fswvegas.com. Joe has sent some amazing wrestlers on to WWE and AEW. And if you haven't checked it out, get on over there and take a look-see. And by the way, of course, if you want to follow us on the show, the crazy trio of myself, Andrew Fishfane, and this guy, Joe DeFalco, just go to markhokeshow.com. Of course, Facebook, Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke, excuse me. It's music. Wow. I lost it there. I tried to do a little flip and failed. At Mark Hoke Show on Twitter. And, of course, markhokeshow.podbean.com for all of our podcasts. And, of course, your favorite podcast outlets. And we've got the shows up on YouTube, too, if you want to listen to them there. So there you go. All right, everybody, stick around. Hey, we're going to be back with more with Joe DeFalco and myself, the best in pro wrestling news and entertainment here on KDWN 101.5 FM, 720 AM. So stick around, everybody. We will be right back. Want more of The Mark Hoke Show? Follow us on Twitter at Mark Hoke Show, like us on Facebook at The Mark Hoke Show, and visit markhokeshow.com to keep up with everything happening with the show. And remember to check out all of our archive shows on YouTube at The Mark Hoke Show and download our podcasts at markhokeshow.podbean.com and all your favorite podcast outlets. So join The Mark Hoke Show family today, and thanks for listening.
This is the Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Here again, your host, Mark Hoke.
All right, and we are back for another half hour of pro wrestling news and entertainment here on KDWN 101.5 FM, 720 AM. I have fixed my tongue. I should have just played that promo instead of babbling there for about 10 seconds, but that's okay. And, of course, I'm along for the ride with Joe DeFalco from Future Stars of Wrestling. Joe spending a Saturday night with me. Are you proud of that, Joe?
Shows you how little I had to do today.
Obviously. Oh, well, we're hitting all the news and that's fit to print here. And another story about one of the ladies, one of the best women's wrestlers in the world, maybe getting sidelined again, as Tessa Blanchard, of course, the daughter of Tully Blanchard and the stepdaughter of Magnum TA. Don't even get us into that story if you don't know it. Sometime we'll explain it on the show on Sunday at 8 a.m. Was working with a new company, Wow Women of Wrestling, and she was doing some training in a promo class, and apparently did a promo on a wrestler named Samantha Sage / Americana, and made everybody so mad that she got pulled out of there and may now no longer be with the company. And, of course, she has had some other issues where she's been accused of bullying and racist comments. This is a woman, by the way, who was the Impact World Champion and not the Women's Knockout Champion. She was the World Champion. I have watched her not only wrestle Sami Callihan, of course, in winning that Impact title, but also watched her wrestle Brian Cage. You know, big, bad Brian Cage. But Tessa Blanchard may be on the outs with this company, too. Joe, I'm curious, have you heard anything about this situation? And if she's out here, my God, where does Tessa Blanchard go? Is her career over?
No, her career's not over. It's just weird to me that since the pandemic, she really has done absolutely nothing. She actually worked for us the last shows before the pandemic went full-blown. She worked, we did a Toy Con that Friday and Saturday, or whatever it was before. So she wrestled Chris Bay, and then she wrestled Lacey Ryan, who's now Zoe Stark in NXT, for the Mecca match. And I'll have to say she was interesting to deal with, I guess, is the best way, you know. And again, there's a lot of people that are a little more difficult than others. She was somebody who was it was all business. Like every dollar, it's like, why is that this and why is this that? And in most cases, usually everybody's, you know, pretty mellow about it. You know, there's only been a few people I met that were like, you know, wanting to know why everything was everything. And, you know, at that point, you know, her being gone from Impact, everybody expected her to probably sign with AEW because Tully Blanchard was there. But then it was like, hey, if they really want a top name, you know, woman, you know, WWE. And then all of a sudden, you know, time passed. And, you know, she wasn't even doing any independent shots. And, you know, they're now married. And even Daga seems to have taken a step back. Like he had been working some shows, but, you know, I figured at worst, you know, Tessa would show up in Mexico and wrestle down there. Daga's from there. You know what I mean? But it's like she, you know, that's great that you sign with WOW, but there's a lot of people who sign with WOW and you can still wrestle elsewhere. So, obviously she is pretty untouchable, it seems like, from the other companies don't want the aggravation, I guess.
Well, and of course she had a big contract dispute with Impact as well, where she wanted to get paid like the men, and I think, if I remember right, the number was like $150,000 or something like that, and Impact wouldn't pay it, and then she ended up vacating the Impact World title. There was a huge kerfuffle about that whole thing. Is she getting? And it's hard to believe that, with Magnum TA around, and I can't remember how good or bad the relationship is with her father Tully, but did she just need to take a step back and say, maybe I need to chill out a little bit and take a little less money and not be as difficult to deal with, and maybe realize I'm ruffling some feathers the wrong way? I mean, what are you seeing on this?
It's hard to say take a step back. She hasn't been seen since March of 2020. So I think any injury she had, she probably should be pretty well healed up.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of being aggressive in contract negotiations and things like that, is she just demanding too much?
Easy to say, but I think at this point, I don't think she didn't get signed because of $50,000. You know what I mean? I think they said, hey, whatever she wants or is asking, it's just not worth, the heat that we may be getting on that. You know what I mean? It seemed like Impact had no issues with wanting to take the belt off her because of some of the comments she made, and everything was good until, things got changed, and then she didn't drop the title, and then she just didn't show up. Because that's what happened. She didn't show up. Mm-hmm. And it's like she was, after our show, they went back to Mexico, and she was pretty much in that San Diego, I'm not even sure, it was San Diego, Tijuana area. That's where they were, and that's where they were living. But she decided to not do anything during the pandemic. They seem to be, concerned with that more so than some people, less than others. Obviously, you can't, at that point, you can't say, well, she was wrong because she felt this, that, and the other thing. Everybody had their thoughts and opinions and everything on what they wanted to do during the pandemic. But after it ended, when you figured, you're going to see her on a bunch of shows, she's going to show up somewhere, she hasn't. And I think it has a lot more to do with a difference of, $100,000. I think it has to do with, we were really not that interested.
Yeah, boy, it's just so hard to picture when you think about the possibility of Ric Flair's daughter and Tully Blanchard's daughter hooking it up for a championship. I mean, God, the stories you could tell and the things you could do with something like that would be amazing. And you would think that if WWE were truly interested and there wasn't something holding them back, that wouldn't be something that they would love to do and put together. I just, the baggage must just be too much right now.
Yeah, but what surprises me more is, the big companies, they don't want her. They're not interested right now. So you would think people would try to, when people are trying to rebuild their reputation, they go out on the indies, just like Big Cass, who had a miserable reputation. He had his issues, and he took care of them, and now he is in a good place, and now there's multiple companies that are interested in him, but he had to go out and prove it. And Tessa can't go out and prove it if there's no shows to be on. Was WOW paying her that well that, that she didn't have to do anything until they were kicking off? Because, it was weird. I know the owner, Dave McLean, cool dude. I like him. And it was like, hey, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And it was like, but we're not going to do it for like 18 months. And it's like, well, it's hard to remember what you're doing 18 months from now.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, well, we'll see where the saga of Tessa Blanchard ends up. That is for sure. And, and now one thing, going back on the Blanchard legacy to thinking about Tully and Magnum TA, and the great and to me, it's one of the greatest matches of all time was the I Quit match that the two of them had for the U.S. title back in the late '80s. To me, the psychology of that match and everything that led up to that was one of the greatest things I've ever seen in professional wrestling. And we just had, speaking of Charlotte Flair, we just had Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey do an I Quit match that really, to be honest, was right up there to me in terms of I Quit matches and ring psychology. And Tony Khan just had a discussion about, using blood in matches or color, depending on, what terminology you want to use. Joe, you teach this stuff. What to you are some of the most important things about ring psychology? And I don't know if you saw the Charlotte Ronda Rousey match or not. Did you get to see it?
I saw the first one, and I heard the second one was better.
It was. What are some of the things that when you guys teach it, and are you looking for in terms of the ring psychology? Because obviously you can get people to go out and do a bunch of moves in a sequence, and there you go, and there's a match. But that's not what makes it special, is the psychology and how people behave and facial expressions and things like that. What do you look for in psychology in a match?
Well, it has to make sense. The biggest thing that annoys me, Disco Inferno, he was one of our trainers for a long time. Loved Disco. But the thing with Disco, he's a very opinionated guy. There's, if you go on Twitter, he might be one of the most hated guys around. And, he looks at things logically. He's not that older guy who's stuck in the 90s and, these kids these days. But when he would teach a class, he would teach basically the same format. It was punching, kicking, and strikes and selling. And the biggest pet peeve he has is watching people no-sell everything just to get back into their next move. And that's the most important thing. Like, maybe the newer people, the newer fans, the younger fans, they like that, which a lot of people call video game wrestling. It's like the video game, I super kick you, you super kick me. I super kick you, you super kick me. And it goes back and forth, and, people get behind it. Oh, this is great. Well, when you're trying to suspend belief, it's hard to suspend belief when no matter what you do, and it's always the same. It's like no matter what you do, everybody no-sells it, and then all of a sudden, you roll somebody up and they can't kick out. And that's the part where you basically try to, pound into somebody's head. Like, you need to sell a little. You need to give somebody time to do things. And
Joe, just so people understand, explain what the term sell and no sell means in case they don't know.
There's a lot of times we have, like, especially now there's intergender matches, for example. And you'll have a 130-pound girl wrestling a 250-pound guy. And it didn't happen on my show. It happened on another show. It was one of our wrestlers. And unfortunately, they got a little offended when I gave a critique to her. And what I basically said was the one thing that took me out of the match was the fact that you were going toe-to-toe with a guy who's called the bad dude, and you're forearming him, he's forearming you, you're forearming him, he's forearming you, and nobody seems to be taking any punishment. And to me, it just takes me out of the match. And that's the one thing that if it takes you out of the match, then you don't care what happens. You're not, you're not enthralled in it. You suspend belief, but you can't suspend belief when certain things are so ridiculous that you just shake your head. And it's like if a 250-pound guy is forearming a 130-pound girl,
she's going down.
That should rock her pretty good.
Yeah.
And she should have to hit you 5 times, which is fine, boom, 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 to kind of shake you up. It's kind of watching Floyd Mayweather. He was the guy, it was his defense, and he'd pepper you, but it wasn't like he was going to knock you out on one punch. And unfortunately, in these days and age, everybody's looking for the next spot. Like, okay, we need to wow the crowd, and, let's hurry up and get to that next point. And that's why the basics are very important. And you need to learn the basics, because that's what WWE is going to look for. They don't care if you can flip off the top rope. They want to know that you can do the basic things that you should be taught when you're being trained properly in professional wrestling.
Who are some of the best sellers that you see in professional wrestling today? Like, if you were looking around and said, this guy does it right, this woman does it right, who are some of the ones you respect the most?
I watch more of our stuff to see that, but, there's guys who, Seth Rollins, for example, just in that Cody match, the firing up of Cody and Kevin Owens, it's generally going to be the heel when that baby face is making that strong comeback to make it where it's believable to be there. John Cena used to take a beating in every match, and so did Hulk Hogan. You know what I mean? But nobody remembers that because they had their big comeback, and and Hogan drops the leg and it was all over. But go watch Hulk Hogan matches, you'll see that 75% of the offense was from the heel. And that's what they say with baby faces, fighting from underneath, which means, it's their job, because as a babyface, they're trying to garner sympathy from the fans, that the reason why a heel is because he can't beat the good guy fair and square. He has to do something dirty to turn the match into his favor. If he doesn't, then why is he a heel? Just because he gives you a mean look? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, where do you think blood comes in? And it's a debate right now that goes on a lot, because WWE doesn't use it. They've tried to stay away from it since about 2008, as I think, when they said no more blood in matches. AEW, maybe, I think, especially as of late, has possibly overdone it a little bit. Where are you on using blood in a match?
In all honesty, on our shows, most people that want to do it will come up to me and like, "Oh, is it okay?" And I'm like, "If you want to," you know what I mean? It's like, in most cases, it's really not necessary. You know what I mean? It's almost a shortcut in certain times. There's times that you obviously, it builds to this blood feud, this thing that you've built for months, and you're inside a steel cage. But in all honesty, it's really not necessary in most cases. People do it, especially in the independent level, they do it because they think it's cool and they think it's going to garner, a pop. But, if you're not doing a first blood match and you're not doing a steel cage match, you know what I mean? It's like, how important is it?
Yeah, I've always thought that if you're going to have blood in a match, it needs to be in a major feud, in a blow-off match, in something that's going to be, a vicious, like a Texas death match, or a cage match, or something along those lines, where two people are just at a point where, you've had a 6-month-long feud where you hate each other. Not just, we've been duking it out for a month and now I'm going to bust you open. No, it's something that, to me, has always needed to be used at the end of a massive feud, not just a small little tete-a-tete, if you will.
Yeah, if Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar decided to go that route, I wouldn't be like, oh, what are they thinking? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was going on for a year.
Right. But even them, if it did happen, it was because somebody got hit the wrong way. You know what I mean? And that happens a lot too, But it's like, if you're doing vicious things and you're carving, like with Nick Gage and Chris Jericho, and I'm cutting you with a pizza cutter, it's kind of dumb if you don't bleed.
Right. That's still one of the funniest things ever with the Domino's ad on the side. Oh, my God. I will never forget that.
And then they read about it.
Yeah. Domino's should have been thrilled.
Right. Now people would buy pizza cutters just to buy them. Why do you care?
I still remember. That's so funny. They got upset about it. But, you know, how many times do you remember watching a wrestling match and remembering what ad was on the side?
No, never.
I do. That's the one. That's the one. That's for sure. Well, of course, this is the Mark Hoke Show on KDWN 101.5 FM, 720 AM, the best in pro wrestling news and entertainment. Special Saturday night edition here with Mark Hoke and Joe DeFalco from Future Stars of Wrestling. And, Joe, I'll tell you, it's been a very interesting week. And did you get to watch anything this week? What did you get to see, if anything?
I watched some SmackDown yesterday.
You know, a lot of people were really talking about that SmackDown episode. The
main thing I know I saw was the Usos stuff with RK Bro and the promo, and I thought Heyman and Sami Zayn was very funny. You know, it just mind boggles me that, you know, when I was just starting into the wrestling business, Sami Zayn was El Generico.
Mm-hmm.
And when he ended up getting signed, it was kind of like, what are they going to do with this guy? He's small. He has a mask. He never talks. He's 150 pounds. How is this guy ever going to make it in WWE? And it's amazing how good his career may have been if he started off as like that Sami Zayn character.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Rust line was pretty funny from Riddle, by the way. That was good. If you didn't see it, that was funny.
We're going to see that match, I guess, next week, and, you know, I'm pretty certain there's not going to be a concrete winner.
Yeah, of course, the RK Bro team with Randy Orton and Riddle will be taking on the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. Finally, we didn't get the match at WrestleMania Backlash, but we're going to have it. So we're supposed to have one set of tag team champions coming up here. Joe, and of course, you already gave a prediction on that something's gonna happen with a.
Yeah, and I'm reading that they're not unifying the belts anytime soon, is what I've been reading. So.
Yeah, and the funny part was when they did the promo too, the Usos said we're just going to carry two different titles, and RK Bro said we're going to put them together. That was, I mean, it was the whole promo I thought was great, but I was just like, well, why would you say that? It's kind of weird.
Well, why would Cody Rhodes say that Money in the Bank, the winners are going to wrestle in the main event at WrestleMania?
That was
9 months later.
That was true too. Yeah, I did see that, and the rumor that WWE has already got their WrestleMania matches planned out for next year in LA. Good or bad? What do you think of that?
Well, you know, you always want to plan in advance. Now, whether that happens or not, you know, is it The Rock? You know, if the Royal Rumble is supposed to be where you get the title shot and there's only one champion, why would the guy in Money in the Bank in July have to sit around and wait all the way to April?
Yeah, that is kind of weird. But, you know, I've always complained with WWE they haven't done a lot of long-term storytelling. So, you know, if they know where they're going to be heading at WrestleMania next year, I guess I can't complain about that.
Well,
I mean,
they did last year with Lesnar and Reigns. We knew that it was going to be pretty much that.
Yeah, with one, but I'm talking more of the other titles, some other feuds that they want to pull off, and of course, you know, the best laid plans get screwed up. Of course, we saw that this year with, you know, Roman Reigns getting COVID and the Bobby Lashley getting the concussion and all that crazy stuff happening right before WrestleMania. So you never know where the road's going to go. But, you know, if WWE's actually planning ahead for once, good for them.
Well, I want to know what's going on. All of a sudden, the last thing we're hearing now is about Roman Reigns taking months off. So,
yeah, and I saw that I've seen some sources report that he was going to be taking 10 weeks off, and some have denied that. So I'm not sure where that's going. That's pretty interesting. But having your double champion taking 10 weeks off, I don't know. I don't know if it's a good idea or not.
Well, didn't at Hell in the Cell they had Reigns on the front? It was the front face, and then they replaced it with Cody Rhodes.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
You know, why would you do that? There's got to be a reason.
Well, I guess we're going to find out here pretty soon. So,
usually when they air the commercials and things have changed, the commercial ends up being right because what everybody denied ended up being fact.
That
and
is.
Then they were, and then they were trying to backtrack. So oh no, it's not really like that, and then it ends up being that way anyway.
Yep. Well, there you go. A lot of good insider stuff tonight here on the Mark Hoke Show. We want to thank you for being with us. Joe, thanks for stopping by. I do appreciate it.
Sure.
So we're going to be back at it tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. here on KDWN, 101.5 FM, 720 a.m. for our normal time slot on the Mark Hoke Show. Follow us on Twitter at Mark Hoke Show, Facebook, The Mark Hoke Show, markhokeshow.com. Podcasts are available at markhokeshow.podbean.com and all your favorite podcast outlets and YouTube as well. Thanks for being with us. Harvey Hyde's coming up next with the Trojan Football Report, so stick around here on KDWN. We'll see you tomorrow morning.